All right, Talitha Kumi, everybody. Talitha Kumi, brothers, sisters, everyone who is joining in on the live. I wanted to get on here. I've been following this story, as I'm sure like millions of Americans and even people who don't live in America. I feel like everyone is following this story. It's captivating, it's addicting. If especially if you're a follower of Candace Owens. Candace Owens has been completely just taking over coverage on this story. It's the lawsuit and the basically the feud between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. And I heard about this first when I believe Blake Lively's claims came out back in December. And I was, even before that, I saw like the press coverage and the coverage on or the promotions on It Ends With Us and with Blake Lively especially and all of that. And I wasn't as familiar with the movie, the books, or Blake Lively or Justin Baldoni. I mean, I was a big fan of Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants growing up, and I remember really liking Blake's character, especially. I mean, I thought she was a little bit like her character in the movie. I thought the character was a little like carefree, but like I thought that she acted pretty well in that and in that movie, and that's kind of all I really knew about her. And then Gossip Girl, of course. I've seen her in Gossip Girl, and I was getting into Gossip Girl when I was younger, but then I realized how toxic watching Gossip Girl was for me, especially as someone who is a Christian and who is just trying to. At the time, I was trying to still watch some of my favorite shows or shows that were trending, but it was really hard for me to like watch shows like that and then not have that like kind of mess with my actual character and my how I saw the world. I really make sure that I try to watch things that are not gonna pretty much like brainwash me into acting different or being different. And so I think I made it to maybe the third season of Gossip Girl until I realized I just didn't like care for watching it because I just didn't agree with the morals that were taking place in Gossip Girl, so I just stopped watching it. I thought her character in Gossip Girl was well acted as far as I remember watching it. I haven't watched it in so long. I've been seeing clips all over TikTok, YouTube, especially TikTok. Like people like TikTok is a whole nother universe of media, and it's a whole nother universe of personality and people with their own opinions. It's amazing. It is so fascinating going on TikTok and seeing people's like perspective and takes on especially the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni case. I feel like you see a lot more than what the mainstream media puts out there, or even a lot more professional accounts put out there that professional people like in the law world. And when I watched, I think it was like Law and Crime, they did a live coverage of, they invited Johnny Depp's lawyer to give his perspective. So that like when they were talking about it, it was very like just what they weren't trying to get too much into what the media was talking about. They were only talking about what was actually on the claims and the lawsuits and things like that. So my whole take on this, like just even if you followed it as much as I've been following it, you can definitely see that this is likely going to be in Justin's favor for the most part. You can see that a lot of what Blake was alleging was blown out of proportion. And then also, when you look at the context, just with how Blake like, she didn't go to the professional route with the whole sexual harassment claim. She actually went to Sony first, or well, the Reddit claim was that she went to Sony. She threatened with sexual harassment against Justin if she didn't get the script that she wanted. So that all in and of itself, I saw a TikToker, I think her name is Dana, she's covering this like crazy, but her perspective on that was like, if you were sexually harassed, you would go through a more professional route. You would kind of do it to protect yourself and your family, but instead she goes to Sony and just uses that as a way to extort and to threaten the company so that she could get the script she wanted, which it wasn't even her script that she claimed she wrote. It was Ryan's writing on it. So just looking at all of that, looking at just from a Christian perspective and how, and even just in a secular perspective, yeah, you can really destroy someone's life with sexual harassment claims, especially if it's blown out of proportion. And just to share some, again, this is a Christian perspective. There's a lot of amazing people that are covering this in a more secular way. I mean, even Candace Owens covering this, and she's a Christian, and her coverage on it is spot on. I highly recommend seeing Candace's coverage on it. But just to talk about like, the toxic femininity of this, just the essential toxicity of this, and even this, like, if this is false, if Blake Lively's claims are found to be false, then we're I'm also going to go into some of the biblical aspects of this, and um, through the lens of truth, of justice, and the dignity of both men and women, right? Because when you look into Justin and who Justin is, you look into his work, you look into the type of the philosophy that he believes in and his worldview. I mean, I just after I've been researching into him, I really can see that he is such a genuine person, and that the the mission that he's chosen to set his life on is to better the world. I mean, that's all he's been doing since after Jane the Virgin, I believe. Like since Jane the Virgin, since that production wrapped up, he's been like doing a lot more work into helping people become better. I mean, he started that Man Enough podcast and the people he's brought on, it's like the conversations he's having. I mean, for someone to have been in a production like that, like Jane the Virgin, you would think that his next steps would be to continue his kind of like path to being more elite in Hollywood. And yet he decides to start a podcast to help men and women. He brings a lot of women onto his podcast as well to better understand women, for men to better understand themselves, to heal themselves. If you also listen to his podcast on Lewis Howe's the School of Greatness podcast. I mean, I learned so much from Justin, and I listen to a lot of personal growth and all those things. But Justin's life perspective overall, even though I don't fully agree with like the particular type of faith he believes in, but his overall worldview is so mature. It's not just vulnerable. He talks a lot about vulnerability, but I feel like it's just this deep sense of wisdom. He always takes time to reflect. He always takes time to own up to his mistakes. And it's the type of masculinity that you wish you could see more in men, especially because men suffer from so much oppression and hurt and oppression from toxic feminism, and from the modern day feminism. So, you can really see that he's trying to heal both sides of the equation. He's not trying to promote masculinity in the sense to oppress women. He's actually bringing women into the equation to heal both sides. I mean, it's beautiful. And even all the press that's coming out, or all the leaks that came out on like Justin's voicemail, Justin's texts and everything. On TikTok, people are like, people talk this much, like in Hollywood, like people send long texts like this for real. And even just hearing Justin's leaked voice message, he sounds exactly like he sounds when he's on his podcast. Like, he talks exactly the same. He talks vulnerably. He talks in a way where he's trying to, especially with that situation with the voicemail, it's like he was trying to really navigate working with Blake, and with her, unfortunately, with just how difficult she was being, how, and I've met people like that, especially women. I've met people like that where They they're really good at manipulating, they're really good at how they speak and how they can try to take over a situation and, how to take control. So, and it's kind of hard to navigate because you don't want to offend them because 'cause you're a nice person, but you also don't want to let them just, treat you, like, stomp all over you, and especially with this case, we can clearly see Justin was the director, and he had the rights to the film, and Blake, constantly tried to take over directing and take over all different aspects of the film, which as someone as powerful as her and the powerful connection she has, I can see that she wanted to utilize that and leverage that to her advantage. And I mean, all the things that are coming out about her on set and her personality, her character, it really just shows that she's never been challenged. Like, she's never been someone to challenge because she's the talent. She's the it girl, and this is my point with toxic femininity in Hollywood, is that they've created a universe where you basically don't ever question the talent, you don't ever question the celebrity, and everything they say that comes out of their mouth, you have to take it for what it is, and you can't fight it, and you can't question it. You can't be human, you can't be yourself around them. You are basically like subhuman to them. You're like a second class citizen. It's so funny when Hollywood celebrities come out and they try to I mean, of course they're still human, right? But the thing is, it's like they've been put on this pedestal. They've made millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. At this point, many of them are billionaires already, all for, essentially just being actors. And yes, they send a message, through their acting, but it's not like they've actually done anything, where it's like, especially someone like Blake. This is about Blake now, but when you read about Blake's history, she's a nepo baby, and she never really, yeah, like people are saying on the press and everything and all the coverage, she's never really worked, like, really hard. And you can also tell she's never had a chance to develop a true sense of, character, and maybe as a mother, she's starting to learn that. I mean, I know when I became a mother, I was challenged a lot with a lot of my values and a lot of things. But if you're remaining in Hollywood and you're remaining the lead actress and you're around all these A-list celebrities and you're constantly being treated like a goddess or a god, you're gonna like, if your values are not in the right place, if you don't have that compass to where you're personally growing yourself constantly, you're not really growing. You're really just staying in the same place. You're just constant you feel like you're being elevated or people think you're being elevated, but you're really just always the spotlight, and you just never are challenged to be a better person. And for Blake to utilize her status and her power, her friends' powers, her husband's power to really, tear someone down who's not as powerful as her, only and to ruin his life. I mean, Justin Justin is not at Blake's level, as a lot of people have talked about, and um he has children, he has a wife, he works really, really hard to provide for his family. I mean, he's talked about that in the Lewis House podcast. Like, he puts his heart and soul into working to provide for his family. And when you talk about him getting fired from the different companies that he was working with or working for, I mean, that is really detrimental. And I think this is definitely gonna like affect his, like, yeah, maybe people, when this is all said and done and maybe he's found to be, yeah, and he's found to be not guilty of the allegations, I don't think he's gonna go back into Hollywood the same way. I don't even think he's gonna go back into that direction. I think he's gonna lean way more into the work that he's already been doing, which is, with his podcasting, helping people with, his production company, all those things. But he's gonna gear it more towards, that's gonna like be true to himself, which is, you can just tell he's someone that wants to just make the world a better place. And I think he's getting a taste of, Hollywood. And I'm sure he's seen some of Hollywood in that sense, but this is his real first taste of, like, A-list Hollywood where they can truly ruin your life in the blink of an eye, in like just one allegation and one claim, and your life is ruined. And I feel really bad for him. And I'm not saying he's perfect as far as a perfect like perfect person. Nobody is perfect, but when you're talking about looking at who was the one that who was the one that really was just trying to do their job and just make sure that the message of the movie was the forefront of everything was Justin. Blake, as we can see, she was really talking about a lot of her hair care products, she tone deaf, as people talked about. And I I I agree with everyone that has criticized that. I don't think it's something that people who have suffered domestic violence, I don't think people are watching Blake and being like, "Yeah, I wanna buy your hair care products now that I've watched this movie." I think they want to be impacted, and they wanna be healed, and they wanna know that, Hollywood, because this is coming out of Hollywood, that Hollywood sees them as well and recognizes them. So when we're talking about a Christian perspective on these things, we can see, like, in the 8th commandment, bearing false witness, right? If this is false allegations, then Blake would have essentially, violated the 8th commandment. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. False accusations are serious sins. And this is why something like gossip and saying things about people that you don't know to be true, or like exactly what, supposedly Blake is doing, which is she's creating this lie that millions and millions of people now, have come to believe. When she first came out with the claim, it's really harmful to, especially because many of us believe that Justin's innocent. It's harmful to someone's reputation, especially if they're innocent. Spreading injustice against them. I remember there's this article where they're talking about how Justin's family was getting like death threats and all these things, and getting, yeah, getting persecuted against, manipulating the truth for personal gain. I mean, we can see that that was basically Blake Lively's goal with all of that, to personally gain, um, essentially the movie. I mean, now that people have TikTokers, especially, and Candace, they have put together the timeline, they put together a lot of the motives. It seems like, yeah, they definitely wanted to try to take the movie from Justin. And then Colleen Hoover, especially the author, I mean, she should definitely state a public apology to Justin, because the way that she talked about him after all of that happened, she didn't even want to say his name. She just said, "Oh, he's the director. Like the director wanted to do this, and that." And it's really sad that someone who you wanted to help, Justin wanted to help her spread her message through a movie, and he was very capable of doing that, and she just completely did a 180 on him. So it's really sad. um Justice and due process, of course, we want to see this play out in the courts. So Blake's claims shouldn't be taken lightly, but then again, the evidence shows that her allegations were very much blown out of proportion. And Justin's innocence should also be like, again, going back to the fact that Blake could have done the professional route. She could have taken a more legalistic route from the very beginning, but she didn't. She used it as a way to threaten taking the film from Justin, and that's exactly what she did anyway. She took his name off of the credit, I believe, when they were putting all the promotional ads together. They took his name off of, directed by or whatever. I think that was the case. So she did that claim. She leaked all that stuff to the press, to the New York Times. And so it didn't even give Justin a chance to prove his innocence. And that's what we should do, is to presume that someone is innocent until they're proven guilty, of course. And so when we talk about toxic femininity in this sense, weaponizing like femininity and the feminist movement to destroy your fellow man, to destroy our brothers in Christ, I think is the biggest issue here. And I talked about this in my other video, The Feminine Genius, and um, f- uh, feminine instinct and feminine intuition, or female intuition. Um, a lot of the times we're often told and sold on using our intuition to be a weapon to destroy men. And yeah, that creates more toxicity in our lives in general. And when we put these celebrities, especially, I feel like celebrities in Hollywood are always at the pioneering of all of these movements and all of these worldviews and how we go about our personal lives, because we have the TV screens right in front of us. We watch TV on a daily basis. We watch these shows and all these messages being and these storylines put through the shows, and then we hear about celebrities' lives, and we hear interviews on celebrities, and we think they're just so perfect, and we think that they just have this perfect worldview, and they're really just actors. They're just, they're not to degrade that, but it's like they have a specific role and a specific, way of doing things, and to try to take everything they do to try to look at them as if they're these role models of like, this is how I should live my life, even though they're living in like mansions, they're traveling in private jets, they're being served constantly by, people, there's always people at their side just waiting to serve them, to take them to wherever, it's like that's not reality. That's not real life. And they're not challenged a lot in that sense. They don't have to work for a lot of things. I remember I used to work for this really wealthy family, and I remember they would give like $100 tips, and they paid me like extremely well. They paid for even my travel expenses, all these things. And like, it's a whole different lifestyle. Like, if you grow up in that lifestyle, hopefully if you like stick to your values and your moral compass, you stick to like being down, like not always being up in the clouds of your being on a pedestal, but you come down to earth. I would hope that we would all try to be that way, but this is why people say like money and power really changes people, and it actually brings out, the true character of someone. And I just I think that this is just a really sad situation. I feel like Blake and Ryan, they should just settle with Justin. I think that's the term, right? Where they should really just pay him what he's deserves and just move on, because when this all plays out, I mean, it's going to destroy their careers too, and they also have a family, right? They have children. So I think I'm thinking about their children too, where I wouldn't necessarily want complete destruction of their lives, because yeah, they're human again. And but it's just like, well, Blake is the one that started it, as everyone is saying. Blake is the one that did this claim against Justin, and then she went to the New York Times and had that piece run about him, and that destroyed his life. I mean, I'm just curious, like, was she thinking about his children? Was she thinking about his wife and his family, like how that would affect his family? I mean, this is like how everyone is saying. This is like David versus Goliath, It's not just like, yeah, Justin's gonna have some money left over. Like, um, I don't think that would be the case if he's someone that is putting a lot of money into different organizations, and if he has put himself into a lot of debt too. I mean, if like Blake, because I think Blake and Ryan, they dropped their case against Justin, but Justin or they might have brought it up again, I forget. But if you just imagine like all that money coming in, this is why people who win the lottery, oftentimes when they win the lottery, they go back into debt. They actually don't stay as millionaires, a lot of them. They use all that money and they're actually worse in debt. I'm not saying Justin is bad with his money, but I'm saying like when you have all those millions of dollars taken from you, and then you have this lifestyle, you have this lifestyle that's up here financially, but then all your finances drop like your sources of those finances go away, all that passive income or whatever, then it's like you're in big trouble, you know? And then, just how people treat you, it's the media and how people perceive media nowadays, and then, the threats to his family. I mean, I'm sure that Blake is receiving a lot of threats too at this point, and I wouldn't want that for her and her family. I always think about the children a lot of the times because I'm a mother. So I think they should just settle it and then just pay Justin back, and they should do a public apology. So, the attack on masculinity. I'm just looking through some of my notes here, but to vilify a man who is doing his utmost, his his best to bring women to the forefront, I think is really sad. The church often teaches. The church teach. There's a teaching of do not pit men against women, but cause both to complement themselves, to complementarity and virtue. That's in Genesis 1:27, I believe. You know, all of this whole case is a reflection of a dangerous trend of distorting gender roles, and instead of promoting genuine justice. I like that line. And then we have forgiveness and redemption, right? Does Blake Lively deserve forgiveness? Does Ryan Reynolds deserve forgiveness despite everything that they have done? If it's come out to be that their allegations are false. Um, if this situation is an example of a false victim narrative used for personal or ideological gain, it calls for us Christians to stand up for the truth and authentic justice and for the dignity of both men and women. Um, so, the Me Too movement is often talked about. I know Candace Owens is vehemently against the Me Too movement just because it has falsely accused men, especially in the media. It has falsely accused men and destroyed their careers, destroyed their lives. And I'm a mother of a son as well, so I think about these things as a boy mom. So, but if it's used, if it's rightly used, of course we can expose real injustices. But this does a lot of harm to women who are in these actual situations. I mean, women who actually, another thought I had about all of this is like, this is so sad because it ends with us is supposed to have been it's supposed to have actually gone into the sequel of the next movie, and it's supposed to have been, or the book, it's supposed to have the focus should have been was supposed to have been domestic violence victims. And now they're not even getting, like, their rightful recognition. I think it's really sad. The focus is basically on Blake, and I'm sure Justin is just really sad that this is where it's come, because I'm sure that what he really wanted. I mean, if you look at his Instagram, he actually shares this. He one of his priorities was to bring a gal. I think she had she I forget, like, she was a I'm not sure what her whole story, was. I don't know if she was a victim of domestic violence, but I think she had some medical issues, and so, she might have been, I think she did pass away, God rest her soul, but he actually one of his priorities was to bring her to the premiere and to have her that give her that whole experience, and at the premiere, as we all know, he was actually shunned to the basement, but even knowing that, he still made a priority to, involve, uh involve, like, someone, and to involve this bigger message beyond just being a celebrity. I mean, as we can, have seen in videos, Blake was just kind of, yeah, she did kind of say some things to the press, like, yes, we want to give people, like, this message. But then she just goes around, and someone even gave her like a friendship bracelet. And she, instead of just putting on the bracelet right in front of this person just to show them, like, oh, this is cute, she didn't do that. She gave the bracelet to, like, one of her assistants. She said, I'm not going to wear this right now because it doesn't match my outfit, but I'll wear it later. Do you think she really wore it later? I doubt that. um I just think that's really, Like, if that person was a DV victim, like, just imagine this person is at a is at a premiere about domestic violence. I'm not saying they were DV victims, but it's like if they give you a bracelet as a celebrity, as someone who is championing, this message, you couldn't just, for at the very least, just put on the bracelet and then take it off later. Like, that's probably what I would have done. Not, I wouldn't even have said like, "Oh, this doesn't match with my outfit," because I'm not really that type of person. I don't really care if things don't match, but like even just to put it on and wear it for the night. Like, she couldn't have just had the charity to do that. See, that's where, like, I just really think about Blake's character and I dissect these things that are on the media about her and not even just spoken about her. Like, there are literally videos of her acting these ways, and it's like you couldn't have just worn a bracelet, just like a friendship bracelet, just for this person who could have been a potentially DV victim, and for her to do that, is really, to me, that just shows her character, honestly. Um, but yeah, being prayerful, again, seeking truth, being justice oriented in that sense, advocating for fairness, rejecting manipulation and falsehood, all those things, right? And not honestly, if you're Team Blake, I'm sorry, I really don't know how you can look at all the evidence presented and still be Team Blake, honestly. I mean, and to be Team Blake, or at least to not look at the evidence and see how all of this was really blown out of proportion. I don't see how you could be on Blake's side and not see that this damages women. I really don't see that, how you can't see that this really does damage women who are really going through some serious DV, um, and how it distorts justice. And I think this really does also create a lot more fear in men too. Like, then it's like you're just making men more fearful instead of, especially because again, this is false allegations we're talking about. So it's like I'm pretty sure Justin's not going to want to be around actresses female actresses at this point, because he's going to be afraid that someone's going to say uh that they were sexually harassed by him. Oh my gosh, in Proverbs 6:16-19, God condemns a lying tongue and a false witness who pours out lies. Again, just we're talking about truth and justice. And just all of this dilutes the credibility of real victims of DV. And when we're talking about womanhood, how does this corrupt true virtues of womanhood? Yeah, hi. um, I think it. I think this also makes women in general, not just DV victims, but just women in general. It makes us seem like, yeah, no, no, we're not eating candy. Um, yeah. Sorry, my son is in the video. Okay, here. Say hi.
Hi.
Sorry. This is life, right? He wants candy. My husband has this secret like candy drawer and my son found it. And so I'm just like, obviously this is a mom's worst nightmare. But how does this affect virtues of womanhood? Because I've been guilty of being very toxic with my husband, especially when we were first dating, even in marriage now. But I think we've learned so much, and we're only in 1 year of marriage, honestly. But when we were dating, and I got pregnant before marriage, I got pregnant out of wedlock. But you know, when my husband and I were first dating, I was extremely toxic. And I was very guilty of turning a lot of things around on him and even like twisting things, gaslighting. I mean, I was very much into that because I was very bitter about some of the things that he did to me. And I knew that wasn't healthy moving forward. I mean, if you're gonna live like that in a relationship, it's not going very far, right? But for women to look at Blake and to kind of see her as this role model for women, I think this will, hurt women and our ability to move forward in truth and in a really in dignity, especially. I think that if we're going to uphold these celebrities as role models of virtue and truth and goodness and all those things, you know, and to act like them, I think is just such a disconnected way of looking at things. And I think this is the issue with even like social media influencers, people who go on social media and they kind of just put this they put their version of how they want you to see their life, and they say all these cool things on the captions and all these things, but when you're really talking about what's going on behind the scenes and you're talking about um, how to actually truthfully live that out without a screen, without, you know, cameras and lights and all these things. Life is way more complicated than that. What life is way more complex than that. Um, and to understand how to go about that being just a really good person and to be a better person every single day, and to not vilify men everywhere you go. I actually suffered from that for a long time because as someone who was, um I guess I guess it was, I'm trying to figure out how to say the word without YouTube trying to flag me, but the M word, MOLESTED. And that happened to me when I was very, very young. And for a long time, I would just look at men like I didn't fully trust them. I would like look at their actions and everything, and I would immediately think, oh, they're predators. At the time, I didn't know what that word. I didn't have an idea of that word, but I would always really look at men as the villains. And I didn't have this full on feminist idea, but I feared men. I mean, that was essentially it, to the point where in my mind, I was falsely accusing men. In my mind, I would go around and be like, just already have this judgment on them, right? Just accusing them. Oh, they're probably thinking this, they're probably doing this. And then you find out, like, oh, yeah, they're not, they're just like walking, they're walking past me. They're just living their life. I mean, granted, I've come across some real creeps too, but for the most part, this does distort our ability to be virtuous and to be able to focus on things that really do matter. Yeah, it's delicious. You're welcome. Yes, it's delicious. Yeah. Ooh, this is a good one. Destroying women's long-term credibility, right? I mean, I can only imagine that it'd be really hard for Blake to continue to work like how she normally works, like business as usual. I don't. Yeah. Yeah, we're not, no more candy, please. Here, drink some sugar-free soda. But yeah, I don't think that this is going to be good for Blake's career. Um and oh, there, if false claims become more common, which I've seen too. I've seen it as being in the military or even just having lived on Guam and being around men who are in the military. I witnessed this one situation play out. Yeah. Okay, can you be quiet? Okay, whisper. But I've seen women. I saw this one gal, she's Chamorro, so I'm Chamorro. But this one local girl falsely accused this guy of rape, this Navy guy. And he's not from Guam, he's from the States. And she ruined his career, she ruined his life. And I believe they found that what happened was that she, like, I guess I forget what the whole story was. It was like many years ago, but she falsely accused this man, ruined his life. And then now it's like people who do like truly get SA'd, you know, it's like it's going to be harder for people to believe them because all of these false accusations. women who seek justice will face more scrutiny because of the damage by others who do lie. Amber Heard, they're calling Blake Lively Amber Heard 2.0. And I think this is more like of a clear. Like I think Amber Heard was not as clear when we were. Shh, can we whisper? I think Amber Heard's situation was not okay. We're gonna. People are watching. um, there were different videos of them arguing and throwing things, but in this situation, it's like, yeah, here you go. Sorry, I cannot talk. In this situation, it's like there's clear messages, there's clear evidence that there wasn't, there that Justin really was just doing his job. I mean, that's really all that's it. There wasn't videos of Justin being drunk and throwing the wine bottle or anything like that. I forget how that Amber Heard story went out. But yeah, like we have way more of like a definitive understanding of what actually went down because of the evidence, right? So that all of this really hurts women and makes them appear less trustworthy in the public eye, unfortunately. And contradicts Proverbs 31, right? The model of womanhood. Um, she opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. Proverbs 31:26. So, toxic femininity would replace wisdom with manipulation and deception. Um, and then just, oh, yeah, this is an also good one I was writing down. Promoting a culture of victimhood instead of strength. So, Christianity teaches that women are strong, capable, and dignified, and not just helpless victims, right? And in need of constant external validation, right? Many Catholic female saints like Joan of Arc, Gianna Beretta Mola, Saint Teresa of Avila, they were strong, courageous women who faced adversity with grace and virtue, not deception and victimhood, right? Um, Toxic femininity would reverse this strength. Victimhood is power. Blaming men brings success, and personal responsibility doesn't matter. I feel like like how we've seen Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni played out. Blake hasn't at all. She hasn't at all taken any accountability. She's stood firm on, especially when the scene came out of them dancing, and her claims did not match what happened in that scene that Justin released. I mean, she didn't take responsibility of her false accusations regarding that particular scene. So it's just it's really sad that she can't even just take responsibility for something like that or take accountability for that. Um, and and yeah, so I mean, it's crazy, right? All of this stuff. I mean, what are y'all's thoughts? Are you team Blake? Are you team Justin? I'm definitely team Justin over here. And I'm just, overall, I really want the families to be safe though, like the children. I hope that these children just learn through these things and not try to be like um try not to step into that toxic world. My husband's trying to call me. Um, but yeah, I hope that this, just my personal commentary was a little bit of perspective regarding just the Christian take on things and how we should always promote virtue. Promote complementarity with men and women. Of course, if something is heavily wrong, and if someone does commit egregious acts against you, I would hope that you do take the route of reporting them, of taking them to court, having these people brought to justice. Of course, I don't want to make this video just to be like, oh yeah, here's my Christian perspective, but really that victims, people who are true victims are empowered, that they do find healing, and that the perpetrators are brought to justice. So definitely let me know your thoughts. I have to go now. My son is he's going wild right now, and my husband's trying to call too. But thank you so much for tuning in. I'm trying to do more of these culture takes on things, because I think this is really important as we just talk about current events and how that affects our lives as women and women of faith and women of strength. So, Talitha Kumi, everyone, have a great day.